they needed hundreds of thousands of dedicated servers, and they went up to Microsoft and they basically said, look, dedicated servers are something that just costs a fortune. The game developers just can't afford it. Having P2P serving servers and basically just relying on people's connections is getting in the way of online multiplayer. And Microsoft basically went away, in Titanfall developers' words, Microsoft went away and they said, right, okay. And they came back and they went full blown with it. They said, okay, right, well, you can use our whole cloud network. You can host all your games on our servers. You can get it to process things in the background. Forza 4, it interprets how you drive and creates AI to drive based on how you drive. And it will be doing those processes through Microsoft's cloud integration.
Yeah.
All this stuff is happening, and games are being so much more empowered with Microsoft's cloud as opposed to PlayStation's, which I don't even think Sony had its own full-blown cloud service. I believe they use somebody else's. As I understand it, I think it's just Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, I think, that have their own cloud systems. And maybe Apple. But I haven't heard anything about Sony. Like, you can actually go out and rent cloud systems from Microsoft right now. You could go on their website.
Right.
So that seems to be something that's really empowering it. So if you want your games to be empowered by the cloud, it seems to be that Microsoft's going to be doing a better job of that there. But again, PlayStation haven't fully gone into their cloud systems yet, so we don't know that for sure. And the other thing is with Kinect and Kinect 2 and having it all bundled in one, I think that's the main influencer of the price point, is that Kinect is bundled with it here, but not with the PlayStation. And I think PlayStation here is going to suffer with the Eye, what Microsoft did with Kinect 1, which was basically, and I'll use the words of Cliff Bleszinski here, guy who did Gears of War.
Yep.
He basically said, and he was arguing for Kinect 2 here, he basically said, back when Kinect 1 was around, and it first came out, developers were looking at it and going, right, that's pretty cool, we could make some pretty good features out of it. Oh, but hang on, it's sold separately. It's quite expensive, we don't know who's going to buy it, who's going to use it. For all we know, 25% of people could buy it, and only 10% of that could actually have it plugged in at the time. So, okay, we'll make some Kinect features, but we won't put a huge amount of resource into it, so it'll just be a little feature. Hence why in Skyrim you've got a few limited voice features. In Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary you had the little analyze thing. Tiny little features which barely made any difference. The only place you saw it really come into its own was navigation on the dashboard. Yep. And he was basically saying developers have got no kind of guarantee that their investment is going to pay off. Whereas now it's bundled there, they can say, right, everyone's going to have it, everyone's going to plug into it, let's go with this, let's run with this and make it happen. And I think Sony's going to struggle there because they're not going to have this big motion control integration like Microsoft has with their Kinect 2 now.
Indeed.
And that's
they have a larger base now, since at least they're planning, what is it? They're planning versions where it doesn't have Kinect, but or bundles where it doesn't have Kinect, but now that pretty much every launch console is going to have a Kinect, developers have more of a reason to develop for it and therefore hone their skills on it and make the most amazing features for it, or at least optimize their development on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why you saw such weak features back in the past, because they didn't have this almost like a guarantee that their investment, all these resources they'd invest in it will pay off. But now they have that, which is why I think that the whole you must check in every 24 hours basically would have paid off, because it was something that Cliff actually linked into here, was the fact that, okay, every Xbox One user's got an internet connection. We know that because everyone connects every 24 hours. So now game developers can go, right, now that we've got that, we also know that everyone is going to be able to access the cloud perfectly. So what we're going to do, we're going to develop all these amazing games using cloud features to fully power our games and make some pretty awesome games. But now they don't have that guarantee, so perhaps that's not going to kick in as well, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. You've invested a lot more time. I myself have looked at articles and would briefly research these things, but you, man, you've gone all in.
I haven't had much of a choice. I kind of, as in case you haven't noticed from me, I really like my debates and my discussions, and something I've been kind of forced into doing, because I found myself spending more and more time on Radio Up Live recently, and when this whole thing first came out, there was a thread started in the Xbox section, basically an Xbox One discussion forum, and there was opinions being thrown around and people complaining and saying this and this sucks without actually thinking about it. And I basically thought, right, I'm just going to go into this, work out where people are going wrong, see what people are missing and find out. So I did all this research, and it's really paid off, because now I know it's good, because I know where my decisions are coming from now. People can say, oh, you're an idiot for buying Xbox One, and I can go, well, actually, and trying to diffuse some of this hate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily care how we mentioned the guy who benchmarked the Hitman Absolution into Tomb Raider, and how Xbox was technically not as fast as a PS4, but it was still barely noticeable, if at all, not really noticeable. So, but we were talking about that, and it doesn't matter to me if it's pretty much the same exact quality. Then I'm okay with it being a little slower or what have you. And it to me, the reason why I'm getting an Xbox One at launch and not PS4 is the games themselves. I mean, what are some of the launch titles here? And going exclusively off of Xbox One exclusives, Dead Rising 3, Forza Motorsport 5. I'm not a racing guy, but Forza Motorsport 5, if you're into Killer Instinct, Rise, and those are a few. And then Titanfall is in the launch window. Project Spark, that seems like a fun game.
It does look interesting.
Just a build 'em game. Everyone's going to be playing Minecraft Xbox One edition. Yeah. They like the 360 edition so much they're still going to play it. So Xbox One launch games are pretty awesome. The launch games for the PS4, as far as I know them, are DC Universe Online, Drive Club, Killzone, Knack, and Warframe. Warframe and Killzone look good to me, but those are only 2 games. Yeah. Knack, Drive Club, and DC Universe Online. While I'm interested in comics and so on and so forth, I'm interested in the DC Universe, and I'm interested in Marvel. They're rivals, obviously. They're competitors. Those are the launch games that I know of. If there are more, tell me. But according to those just don't appeal to me as much as the Xbox One's launch games. Yeah. So I made my decision based off of what I do know of the specs, and then what I know of the games as well. Yeah. The main things driving mine were basically simply, right, games that are going to be exclusive and things I'm going to be able to access. So Rise looks absolutely amazing. Forza, I'm not a big racing person like yourself, but it looks good and I like my fancy cars, so I'll get it just for the sake that it looks gorgeous. What was it? Titanfall, that just really appeals to me. And of course the big one that's driving it for me is Halo. I don't care what Halo's, but I'm never going to want to stop playing Halo. I'm sure you can get bored of it at times, but I'm always going to want to be invested in that story, and so that's part of what really drove it. However long Halo goes, I'm going to be playing it at least for this. I'm going to buy every Halo at least for the story. Yeah. If not the multiplayer. Yeah, and then you've got so that's really driven it for me. But then you've also got the controller, which is a big thing for me. You've got now there's something very much about Microsoft. I'm not a Microsoft fanboy, as some people like to call me or anything, but it's a thing about I feel more secure with Microsoft, whereas with Sony, I don't really know what it is, but I've never really felt right with Sony. I've had a PlayStation Portable and stuff like that, and it's the way everything's presented almost feels patronizing for a start. It's the way that, is it PlayStation Home or something? It's like where you go into and you're like an avatar person, you walk around this place. Yeah. That almost feels almost patronizing. I don't like it. It feels too... No, it doesn't sit right with me. But... Oh, crap. Someone's trying to play co-op with me on Dead Rising, but I'm doing this dual comm here.
there's something about something that really doesn't sit right with me, and then I don't feel so secure with them either. I think it's partially influenced by the whole hacking issue they had a while back.
Yeah.
It's not that entirely driving me, but I just feel everything is much more secure with Sony. I don't hear as much of them in the news or anything like that, whereas Microsoft, they're out there, they're a well-established company, they've been going for years, they've got all these computers going, everything looks modern, they're constantly doing new things.
Yeah.
And everything just sort of feels homely with Microsoft. It's not patronising, it's cool, it's bright, everything on the operating system, it just stands out at me. And
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I mean, Sony's never really had a computer background. They were electronics, like TVs and Walkmans, and in developing that kind of thing. Microsoft has always been sort of a computer-based company, so them having knowledge of how servers work. I mean, I think Xbox has been hacked a few times, but never for a month or two like Sony was at one time in the PlayStation 3's network. So I can see what you're saying when you say you feel more secure with Microsoft, and I get what you're saying. How do I want to pronounce it? I get what you're saying. It is sort of patronizing. That maybe not for sure, but I get the feeling that Sony's side is patronizing, and not because of them necessarily, but maybe more so of their fan base. Not all of their fan base, obviously, but the diehard fans. Yeah. They just make it seem like we're such idiots for not being a Sony guy, and they're starting to get on Nintendo Wii U fans too, Sony guys. Yeah. So
just leave them be and let them have their fun.
Let them have their Wii U. Even though I'm not personally going to buy a Wii U yet.
No, nor am I, and the figures aren't really helping them. But we'll leave that for now.
But I don't think it's Sony's fault that their side seems patronizing. But
yeah, I think it's partially down to their fan base. They try and cater it to everyone, but it's like with Sony, if I was to ever, whenever I go to a friend's house and I play a PlayStation, if I ever got something like Call of Duty, it feels I don't want to say that Xbox is hardcore and PlayStation isn't, but that's what it always feels like. It's that sense of PlayStation is very smooth, it's like the fine diner versus the person who just eats what they want all the time.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way I can describe it. PlayStation is this sort of fine diner person who goes to the opera, whereas Xbox is your average person who just does what they want to do.
I see what you're saying, and I totally agree.
It's weird and very difficult to explain, but yeah, and I think the whole secure thing, I've experienced a heck of a lot less problems with Xbox and their services compared to what PlayStation I've heard about. Like, I can go into sixth form and that, and friends will be saying, "Oh, I couldn't connect to you last night. I couldn't play with you. I couldn't get onto PSN. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that." And I hear that very regularly. Whereas Xbox, every time I go on, I can connect. I've only had 1 or 2 times where I've gone online and I haven't been able to connect to Xbox Live because it's gone down, and that only happens for about half an hour maybe. Whereas PlayStation, it might be off all night. I've heard in the past. And then there's been things like Microsoft's updates has never really bricked a console, to my knowledge. But with PlayStation, only a couple months ago, they put an update in and it completely bricked consoles.
I remember that one. That one.
That worries me. I'd have thought, if they're going to put an update out, they would have tested it. But yeah, it almost feels careless of them to have put an update out, which just seems to have bricked consoles like that. And I'd have thought that would have stood out as a sore thumb to them.
It reminds you of like how Sony fans are gonna hate me, but how in The Last of Us, have you seen gameplay footage of The Last of Us?
A little bit, yeah.
Like how Ellie can just run around and there'll be clickers there, or maybe not even clickers, but just soldiers or people with guns, and they're looking for Joel. Ellie can be out in the open and sometimes run around, and then sometimes your AI companions, like I forget his name, but the guy with the brother, like the smaller brother who won't do spoilers, but I think people who played know who I'm talking about. I can't remember his name, but the guy with the little brother, he sometimes when they're walking around with you, some glitch or something happens and it just like sends their character in and around the environment, and they're walking fast, and they're walking in front of your enemies that you're trying to avoid. And it's little things like those that can make the atmosphere of a game. And I'm not saying The Last of Us is a bad game because of it.
Yeah.
But you think they would play test these things, and you were talking about how Sony, you would think that Sony would test these or this update on multiple consoles to make sure it doesn't brick a console.
Yeah.
So you expect these things to be tested before they're put out.
Yeah, I mean...
And go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, it happened quite frequently in the playthrough of The Last of Us that I saw. I don't know if it happened to everyone who played it, but it happened quite frequently in the playthrough I saw. And this Sony update bricked a lot of consoles from my understanding, so you would think that they would test these things before they put them out.
And it's like... how can I put it? Everything just doesn't feel quite right. Like, I mean, again, as well, I've had friends who have said, oh, I couldn't play with you last night, sorry, because this update for PlayStation just took forever. And sure, Xbox system updates, they do take a good 5-10 minutes sometimes, but it's never been like hours of update. Like I've heard from some people, they've had like hour-long system updates, and they've had like the same internet connection as me, and I'm thinking, what the heck are they doing to their consoles? Are they, you know, are they storing government secrets on them or something? Because I don't get it. And like, there was a Battlefield update, and for me it only took, say, 15 minutes. Friends, it took them 2 or 3 hours for the same file size, and I'm thinking...
And some of that may be due to where you are and your internet connection, because updates don't take nearly as long as that for me. They take maybe 2 minutes, or sometimes 5 minutes.
I just don't get it, because like, I've got a friend who just lives around the corner from me, and he runs off the same internet as me, but it's like they're complete poles apart, and I don't know what it is, because as I understand it, PlayStation's system is faster, but things like updates, they seem to take an age.
Yeah,
it confuses me, and that's why it doesn't quite sit right with me.
I hear what you're saying now. Anything else, or do you like maybe talk more about the games, or do we want to end this here?
We are running quite far. Maybe we should actually. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
I'm getting an Xbox One.
don't hate us, Sony fans.
Yeah, please.
I will get a PS4, but just not at launch.
I'll play on my friends. I won't get a PS4 because I can't justify that sort of money to myself. But for both of them, but
yeah,
I will play one at some point. Don't worry. If you're gonna leave any replies in the comments to us, keep them civil, or I'll just chuck them out. They can do whatever, but
they will do whatever. But yeah. So come check me out on my channel at Times Rhymes. We'll put a link in the description, and I'll put a link to Tyzer and my video when I upload it to my channel. Yeah. I am going to try and return full time by November when the Xbox One comes out, so I can do some Let's Plays of Rise, Dead Rising 3, obviously Battlefield 4, and Call of Duty. I'm planning all of these games here. Yeah, it's going to be good, and the good news as well. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, and the good news as well. Now you can. I don't know if you've got a good headset or anything, but I've for people who have got big gaming headsets, it's just been announced that Xbox will allow all their sort of these top of the line gaming headsets will work now. Nice. So that's good news. So yeah, we'll be in full force come November, especially with Times. So check it out. And do you have anything planned for your channel? Well, there's a little something that I was talking to you about, which you know about, which it might change things around just a little bit. It might change my attitudes a bit. You might see a little bit more coming from me, but obviously I've been away, so it's been a bit spotty for me. But I'm getting back on track now. I've spent most of the day recording stuff, so it's getting back on track. And if what you told me earlier before we started recording does happen, it's definitely going to be a change for your channel, and I'm happy for you. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it if it does turn out right. Okay, right. So I'm Times, and I'm Tyzer, and it's been a blast talking again. Can't wait to do it again. Later. See you guys.
captured. Enemy flag taken. Enemy flag down. Escort carrier. Team score. Game over. Victory.